The set itself is like a large percussion instrument.
Oh, wow.
We have elements of old theater, like a wooden wind machine. And the costumes are a mix of time periods. The only commedia direct quote that you can really see are the two doctors, the dottore, who have the big mask with the nose and the glasses. Those are obviously inspired by commedia.
Right.
And others were drawing from different periods.
So you mentioned that the stage set itself is a big resonating machine.
Yes.
How so?
Well, as you can see in the video and the photos, there are metal plates that are like thunder sheets. And there are wooden tubes that have different pitches when the actors hit them. So the characters can make noise with the metal sheets or use them like thunder sheets, and the pieces move up and down.
So as the action becomes very physical, then their activities on stage actually can make music and sound.
And there's a lot of storm in the story, so we have elements of the set to help create the storm.
That's right. How long is the play?
It will be, in its new incarnation, 2010, 90 minutes, no intermission.
And the kids just go for it?
Oh, yeah. Before it was longer than that with an intermission, and it was fine, but we want to condense it.
So before we move on to the music, why don't you tell us what you showcased of the plot of the play?
Great. Well, the basic story is there's a prince named Tartaglia who's been sick in bed for many, many years. And nobody really knows what's wrong with him. He's a hypochondriac. So his father is an old king, and he's very concerned because he's approaching his death, and his son is in no shape to take over the throne. And they've tried all different kinds of treatments, which was very fun to translate to today.
Yes.
All this, modern medicine and holistic medicine and Eastern medicine. They've tried all types of things, all types of doctors. So finally, at the beginning of the play, they bring 2 more doctors, and their diagnosis is if the prince is going to live, he must laugh. But the guy hasn't laughed in 10 years. So the king hires a comedian, who's Truffaldino, the character that you mentioned, who's the clown.
Antonio Sacchi, right.
Slash servant, slash helper, slash thief.
Right.
And he's hired to make the prince laugh. And he does, accidentally, much to the disappointment of the evil witch Fata Morgana, who does not want the prince to laugh. So Fata Morgana's in cahoots with 2 other members of the palace who want to take over the palace, the Princess Clarice and Leandro, who's the basically prime minister. So the witch puts another spell on Tartaglia once he laughs, and she says, you're in love with 3 oranges. There are these 3 oranges that you have to find. He becomes obsessed with the oranges. Enlists Truffaldino as his partner. Truffaldino's a comedian. You know, he's not a squire. He can't. But there they are. So here are these unlikely heroes traveling through storms, rain, mountains, valleys, desert, and they have to overcome several obstacles to get to the oranges. And of course, the oranges become magical objects. So from sickly anti-hero, he becomes a lover, a hero, a prince, and we have a happy ending and a wedding.
So how do you perform on stage the search, the quest? Because in a fairy tale, obviously, you have pages and pages and pages of obstacles and going and finding new obstacles. But on the limited space of the stage, how do you do that?
Well, thanks to the genius of our set and costume designer, Emil Kapelush, who's from St. Petersburg, Russia. I think that we express that really well. 2 other elements of the set are 3 pyramids that move. They're 3 blue triangles that move on wheels, and they're a little bit different sizes. And then 3 wooden benches, big wooden sloping benches that actors can hold on to and sit on, and stagehands can move them.
I see.
So with these 3 benches and 3 pyramids and some silk fabric and another black piece that goes up and down, creating a border, creating a stage, creating windows backstage, we create mountains, we create a moat, we create the iron gate that's very hard to open.
Right.
We also have a dog, a scary funny dog, created by 2 actors,
That's great.
which is another classic old-fashioned way of showing an animal, 2 people inside the big dog.
Right.
So it's a lot of imagination, which the kids love. I'm believing right now that those 2 blue pyramids are an iron gate. I'm going to believe right now that these two benches are coming together to create a moat over the smoky, fiery river.
Right.
And a thing we should talk about in terms of that imaginary world and the music is we found, what we created was Truffaldino and Tartaglia, the two anti-heroes who become heroes. They are given 3 magical objects by the wizard Celio.
Right.
And we invented that he gives them a flute, a bell, and a maraca.
Oh, right.
So every time they have an obstacle they have to overcome, in their clownish, clumsy, foolish way, they discover that playing music on these instruments helps them overcome their obstacle. The music makes the bridge close. The music makes the gate open. The music makes the dog go to sleep.
That's fantastic.
So each time they make a journey from playing noise to figuring out music.
So I'm sure that there's always some very helpful kid in the audience who will say, why don't you try this?
Yes, and they're invited to, because we have a lot of audience interaction. We have rapping in the show, and kids have to help finish rhymes of the rap. There's running into the audience. So that's the environment.
So tell me about the music.
So the music that we are right now creating, I'm creating new music with Luciano Stazzone, who's been my collaborator on 3 shows before this. And we have inspiration that we're using, which is actually Nino Rota's music from Fellini's Casanova, which is another Italian fantasy, very theatrical, Venetian form, right?
Venetian 18th century. Bing,
exactly,
bing. Yes.
Exactly. So that's a lot of our inspiration for the music that we are creating right now.
But that's interesting, because Casanova is an adult story.
It's an adult fairy tale.
I guess so. I guess for a man, it's definitely a fantasy. For a woman, might be more of a nightmare. Or, you know, be careful what you wish for. And what's Luciano's background?
Luciano is from Argentina, and he's a drummer and a composer and music producer, and he has a great team of other artists that he works with. So he's perfect for this.
So will there be drums on stage?
There will be drums on stage played by the actors, as well as recorded tracks.
And it's interesting because, as you mentioned, that objects come together on stage to suggest to our imagination, and then we fill in the blank and we give it meaning. That is Western theater. That's not Gozzi's theater. We project our own meaning-making abilities, because we come from centuries of this, and our kids learn it from going to the plays with us, hopefully. The theater is not a dying art. But in Gozzi's time, for his performances, you had to be much more explicit, because people were still in the process of being trained to, okay, I see an actor, but actually the body I see, it's supposed to be bad wizard or bad witch. And at the end you would clap the ability of the actor rather than boo the moral failings of the bad wizard. So it's an interesting bridge production and bridge play itself between what used to be, what we think it used to be in the Middle Ages, and what we now call theater.